Hello, my name is Brad, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of the Masonry unit database that's within the MAS software. When you look at a new design, you'll basically see there's different options. So pretty much all the time, you'll be looking at concrete block. There are options for hollow, solid, or semi-solid units, and then you'll see the different sizes that are available and the different strengths, but it is possible to change those. And so to make any changes to the database, you'll need to look at this icon up here. So it's just to the right of the buttons that you go through when you do a design. So to open it, you simply click there and it will open up the database. This is the default view. So if you wanted to make a new supplier, that is how you could do this. However, looking at just the default units here, I'll show you there. It's basically structured under suppliers, which we have our default block and brick. We don't even really use the bricks. But if we look under blocks, this is where you see all the info for the different units. So there's type A, hollow, like I said, the most common. There's a semi-solid unit where you basically have these larger face shell units that show up there, and then the solid, which is just the unit is just solid concrete. And so if I look at the hollow units, the numbers that are here, you'll see this, the height and length. This is basically what governs the layout of the wall. So when you're looking at a typical masonry design, I'll quickly just put a height here to demonstrate running bond. I'll put in 5 meters. So you'll see a wall shows up here. So by default, I mean, if you're familiar with masonry design at all, you'll see that we are typically looking at multiples of 200 millimeters. So these units are each 400 millimeters long and 200 tall. However, if you really zoom in and you take into account the mortar joints, these units are actually 390 millimeters long plus 10 millimeters of a mortar joint and then 190 tall. And so if I go back to the database now, and I go back to that unit, these values that are here, these are nominal dimensions, and so that's why that's labeled here on the diagram. The density here as well, I mean, we're talking about different types. We have type A and type C that are available in the software. However, those are just density classifications, and so if you were to create a new unit, that is how you could go about and do that. And then we have all the different properties here, so the sizes that show up here, you can see the percent solid. And really, it's this effective face shell value that gets used. So these values are consistent with what we have in our masonry design textbook. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions about that textbook. And then the strengths they all appear down here. So what I'm going to do is create a new supplier. So I'm going to just make a new block. So if I wanted to edit the default one, I could do that here. But what I'm going to do is click on new supplier. It's going to create one down here. I'm going to call it Brad's block. Great name, really dug deep for that one. And it says that to create it, you must click apply changes. So I'm going to click on that. And what it'll do is it'll add it as a supplier. So these just get sorted alphabetically. So it shows up here. So now what we can do with when we have it selected is click on new unit line. And this is where we get opened up to all of these different options. So I'm just going to call it Brad's unit, I guess. I guess that's an okay name. I'm just going to create it as a concrete block. This is where I can choose hollow, semi-solid, solid that we talked about before. And then these default nominal dimensions will show up here. So if this was like a class, like a type C, for example, I could enter this as 1800 kilonewtons. And so that is actually the density per solid cubic meter of the material, of the concrete that's used to make the units. There is an article on this website talking about how we calculate that and how we use it. There are different types of concrete that can be used as well. Type C, they tend to also be L220S, especially if you're out west, but it's not necessarily the case. But this is used for fire ratings. And so if this is a lighter weight unit, if I know for sure that the concrete that's being used is L220S, taken from the building code, then I might select that. And then there are different options for block availability. So half-high units, Ashler's, bond beams, whether you can do knockouts and things like that, I can select those. If I now click, if I want to look at the sizes, so right now this is just blank, so I'm going to click on new to put something new in here. It's a little bit confusing, but basically the inputs are done down here and they're reflected up there. So I'm just going to make a 20 centimeter block. Once again, these are nominal sizes. So the actual thickness of this is, it says 200, but it's actually 190. And then the percent solid, I mean, that depends on the unit. Let's just say this is 56% solid. This will affect the self-weight calculations. And then we have minimum and effective face shell thicknesses. I'm just going to put these values in 36 and 38, and that is how we have that there. And then if I want to create more, you just click on new again, and it'll create another one. So I can go through and create maybe a 25 centimeter block. We'll just say this is 45% solid. And then I'm going to do 38 and 41, which is closer to a 30 centimeter block, but I'm just making this to demonstrate. So now that I have these two sizes, what I can do is start putting in strength. So I click on new. This is where I can choose different values. I mean, it pre-populates a drop-down, but you can change these to pretty much anything. If it's within the values that are in table 4 of the CSA S304, then it'll use these to automatically do F'(m) values, but these can also be overwritten in the software. You can see these auto boxes over here are selected by default, but let's say you're not quite exactly sure or you want to use a specific F'(m). You can put anything here just to get the value, to get the unit to show up, but then afterwards you can just turn off that auto box. That's what you want to do. So I'm going to put just a 20 MPa unit, and maybe I'll create one more. I'll create a, let's say a 30 MPa unit. Sounds good. So now that it's here, what I can do, I can apply changes and click OK. And so now we've got the default one, but now my the unit that I just created shows up here. I can click on it. You can see my two sizes, my two strengths, and that is how you go about creating a custom masonry unit in the Mas software.